guess we can start with introductions. I'm Michelle Riedinger. I'm the Senior Facilities Design and Construction Manager with the city. We have Ron, Jason, Darian, and Dan with us also from the city. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourself or... Nope. Okay. So we're here to talk through just the pre-submittal for the RFQ for the transit and equipment facility replacement project. So we'll just start with some guidelines. We are recording this meeting and everyone should have signed in just so we can issue kind of a meeting summary and have a record of who attended, just to make sure that addendums and communication is getting to everyone. We will have, we are anticipating one addendum. At least we have some a reduction in the DBE goal that we'll be issuing at some point. So addendums will be posted via IonWave. Kind of playing into that as well, the deadline for questions is March 4th. So hoping for just one addendum, but if we'll need a second addendum, it'll probably come out around that March 4th deadline once we have all the questions. Remarks, clarifications, or corrections, that any questions that come up during this meeting will be reiterated in that addendum as well. Obviously, make sure you're reading the RFQ closely and you know, addressing all the things and the submittal outline that we provide there. And then just, it's stated in the RFQ, but we do have some FTA funding, or quite a bit of FTA funding, and we'll kind of highlight that later. But because it is partially funded by the federal government, we'll have to comply with all applicable FTA, federal, state, local regulations and grant requirements. So jumping into the project background, the existing equipment and transit facilities are both located on the Riverside Drive site, approximately shown here, and the new facility is projected to go on the kind of corner of Gilbert and McAllister Boulevard. That'll continue to build out that kind of public works site that the city's has master planned and has been developing that site in recent years. So that'll go kind of on that lower south corner of that, just north of Cherry Tree Wood. So in 2015, I believe there was a master plan of this public works site. So kind of phase one, piece one of that was completed several years ago with the streets and maintenance building. And so this is kind of the next phase of that, showing there were kind of two concepts at that time, with either kind of transit and equipment being two separate facilities or one. You'll note this, there's kind of two different land areas. There's this corner lot that is not eligible, at least currently, for FTA funding. So that is a kind of complicating matter with the project. That is now owned by the city, so the equipment building, equipment portion of the project would be possible to put on that site, but that's kind of one hurdle that'll be a part of this project, is navigating the ineligibility of that for the transit federal funding piece of this. So some kind of additional background, contributing factors as to why we need this project. Both facilities are aging. The transit building was built in the 80s. They are both on a former landfill site, which has created some differential settlement issues, especially for the transit building, where paving just has to keep on being added because the pavement is shifting away and creating access difficulties for those vehicles. And then there's also some space limitations where, you know, we're running out of storage, so we're using hallways for storage, as well as the current electrical feed limits the expansion of the electric fleet of buses. So as we kind of look towards climate goals, want to be able to kind of continue those efforts into electrifying the fleet. So some kind of primary objectives, and these are all kind of reiterated in that RFQ, is focusing on that kind of sustainability component, both on the building kind of design and construction and what it facilitates for transit as they, aim to fully convert to electric or low or no emission vehicles. As mentioned, kind of centralizing those city services, building out the public works kind of site to facilitate that. And kind of another component is because we're building on a different site, we can maintain those existing transit and equipment buildings until the new facilities are ready for occupancy. So there should be minimized interruption to city operations. Some kind of additional objectives that were also highlighted in the RFQ was complementing the topography in the adjacent buildings, with Terry Trueblood being right there, and the streets building in close proximity, continuing and maintaining that continuity on site, aiding in that continuation of FTA grant obligation process, and additional investigation into additional funding opportunities that the project may be eligible for. There is the NEPA assessment component of it, so streamlining that process as much as possible. And included in the RFQ is also demolition of those existing facilities. Ron or Jason could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's some possibility that maybe those facilities, there's some internal discussions as to what the future fate of that site is. So some of that will be refined in scope negotiation as to whether that demolition is going to be a part of this contract or not. But that's how the RFQ was written, was that it would be. So just kind of overviewing the scope, taking it from facility planning, programming, space allocation through bid documents for the new facility or facilities, and including with that the coordination with the local energy provider for the electrification of the transit fleet. NEPA documentation, we're also including or listed that geotechnical investigation to be wrapped up in the scope of work, bid and construction phase services for the new facilities. And there is also a component of estimating the probable construction cost throughout the process of design. So just kind of an overview of the funding. As we mentioned, we have some FTA funding. We were awarded a pretty significant grant under the low no emission grant. There is also some congressional funding that we've secured, and then there's some local match and capital improvement projects that'll also support the costs of this project. So overall project schedule, looking for, aiming for design later this year through 2025, and then targeting construction starting kind of late 2025 through 26 or 27. As listed in the RFQ, the submittal schedule, that question deadline is by the 4th. The deadline is March 25th at 4. We're anticipating interviews late May with a final selection at the end of May, and then negotiating through June and aiming to hit the July 16th council meeting for awarding the contract. And then there's my information, my email, my contact information is on IonWave, but there is a location on IonWave to upload any questions that may come up in the coming weeks as you look at preparing that submittal packet.